Ready? Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming. I stand before you today with my executive team. As I stated a few weeks ago, following my initial response to the governor, I regret having to address and to respond to the governor of the state of Maryland publicly. However, he's gone on record and stated that he has no interest in ever meeting with me as the twice elected state's attorney for Baltimore City. His entitlement and his privilege and his misogyny allows him to disrespect me the way that he does and always has. But what I won't allow is for this governor to disrespect the talented, skilled, overworked, and underpaid prosecutors who have committed their legal careers to public service and who every day face voluminous cases, uncooperative witnesses, demanding judges. Every day, my prosecutors take on violent criminals in order to ensure justice for the citizens of Baltimore City. We, the people that live in the city of Baltimore, are not naive enough to believe that this governor's attacks against our city come from any form of sincere concern about the problems that we face. We recognize that his actions are purely political, which is why he continues his incessant dog-whistling attacks about Baltimore crime, which contrasts with his deafening silence on the increased crime in the rest of the state. This governor, who flaunts his ability to bring people together, does no such thing. In his time in office, he has blamed the mayor, the police commissioner, the judges, city council, and even the state legislature for the crime in Baltimore City. Yet many of the city's problems can be laid at the door of the state agencies that he oversees, which is why we are here today. I've sent the governor a letter outlining the data that he publicly requested when he threatened to freeze millions of dollars in funding for crucial prosecutorial services that my office provides to victims and witnesses of crime every day. This data, which was already published on my website and already provided to the Office of Crime Prevention, Youth, and Victim Services on a quarterly basis as part of the grant process, shows that my office takes violent crime seriously. In fact, over the past 5 years, the data shows my office has maintained a 90% conviction rate on average for violent offenses, an average of 88% conviction rate for mandatory minimum eligible cases, and a 92% conviction rate for violent repeat offenders, all of which is consistent with the conviction rates of my predecessors over the past 10 years. What the data also shows is that the null pros and stet rate is also consistent with the last 10 years. But I think we can all be honest and recognize that the governor's most recent attacks against me and our city has nothing to do with data. We can all recognize at this point that the governor is no longer concerned about the job that he currently has and is merely playing to his conservative base and politically posturing for his next job. What better way to do that than to attack the progressive black woman prosecutor in a majority black city? The problem is this. Prior to launching a disinformation campaign on data, he probably should have looked at the data himself. Because what the data shows is that every resident of this state should be deeply concerned about the breakdowns in various state agencies that the governor oversees, which have contributed to the violence and loss of life, not just in Baltimore City, but in our state. Just this past week, Governor Hogan appeared on Fox News Sunday and was asked a question in connection with the attempted murder of a Baltimore City police officer, to which he shamefully responded that we have a prosecutor in Baltimore City that refuses to prosecute violent criminals, and that's the root of the problem. None of that is true. In fact, the truth is that the lead suspect in the shooting of that police officer, who is still currently fighting for her life, was supposed to be under the supervision of the governor's state agency at the time of that horrific offense. That suspect, who is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty, was not only on state-run pretrial supervision at the time of that brazen shooting, but he was released on his own recognizance pending trial for being a felon in possession of a handgun in Baltimore County, not Baltimore City. A month ago, Baltimore City residents were distraught following the stabbing of a 69-year-old woman killed in an East Baltimore church. The governor had the audacity to utilize this case as an example of my office not holding a violent repeat offender accountable. That, too, was a lie. The truth is that suspect was fresh off of parole and was not given adequate state supervision given his level of violence against others and his criminal history, which included violent rape by force, felony assault, and robbery. That suspect actually committed a robbery while on state supervision, and despite the numerous red flags and mental health issues, the state supervision was lowered for this violent repeat offender by the governor's state agency. What's clear from the data is that the suspect, who is also presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty, should have never been allowed off of state supervision in the first place. Similarly, in 2018, the governor's State Department of Juvenile Services secretary erroneously attempted to blame my office for the release of a juvenile that ultimately killed a Baltimore County police officer. Once again, this was a lie. In fact, it was the governor's State Department of Juvenile Services that pushed for the juvenile's release over the objection of my prosecutors and even his own mother. So yet again, the governor's state agency failed to properly supervise an individual who then took the life of a police officer. These failures by various state agencies that are overseen by our governor are not isolated incidents, but are a part of a pattern of malpractice and mismanagement breakdowns in state government, which is why today I have requested a legislative oversight investigation into the practices of the Division of Parole and Probation, the Department of Juvenile Services, and DPSCS to evaluate why these failures have occurred, continue to occur, and how we can prevent such tragedies from occurring ever again. Let me end by saying this. The governor is entitled to his own opinions about me, but he's not entitled to his own facts. He should stop his campaign of disinformation against the city of Baltimore and do the job he was elected to do until his term is over. In spite of everything, I, along with my talented prosecutors, stand ready and willing to collaborate with the governor should he decide to finally show the leadership our city and state deserves and so desperately needs. Thank you. Questions?
Is this a distraction for your office? I mean, we was here, like you said, a few weeks ago, and you addressed this, and now here we go again.
So, I mean, what this is in response to what the governor has requested. I'm merely responding and providing and conforming to the data that he has already been in possession of and that was already published on my website. But what is new is the request for the audit into the state agencies.
And you are going to look into the state agencies now more about what they're not doing.
Well, that's what the data suggests, is that there have been really deficits and breakdowns in state agencies that have led to the death of individuals not only in the city of Baltimore, but in our state.
And you made reference last time, I'm sorry if somebody else, but you made reference last time with your attorneys here, other agencies are recruiting them. And, I mean, you have top-notch people.
I do. I'm very proud of my prosecutors, and you know, the governor has been coming for me for 7 years, but don't come from my prosecutors who have dedicated their legal careers to fighting justice, as was and has been acknowledged even by the city Human Resources Department. They are overworked and underpaid, but every day get in here into court to fight for justice for the citizens of this city.
So what do you think is next? I mean, this is round 2, 3, or whatever you want to call it.
No.
You think it ends now or just something else?
Unfortunately, we knew this was not about the data. I mean, unfortunately, the governor is, you know, politically posturing himself for his next position. So I hope that providing him this data will stop his disinformation campaign against my office and against my prosecutors. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.